Okay guys, shall we kick off actually? I'm going to make this very brief because we've only got an hour or so with some people. So thanks to the guys for coming along. And I'll hand straight over actually. So in about an hour, the guys will go through the core of it in the first hour. We will hang around here for another 15 minutes or so, 15-20 minutes. So we will try and cover the core of it in that hour. But please ask questions as you go along.
Perfect.
Right, cheers guys, over to you.
Okay, well, good morning. My name's Mark Lillywhite. This is my esteemed colleague Stuart Power, and we're both from Matrix 42. It sounds like Dragon's Den, this, doesn't it? We're here to pitch, So we're here to talk about what it is that Matrix 42 does with ServiceNow. I spoke at the user group, the UK user group yesterday, which was in the Tower of London. We had 68 other users there. And so I presented something very similar to what you'll see now to those guys and ladies, and it was pretty well received. I've got 6 or 7 slides that just introduce and set the scene, and then I'll go into the live demo, which I can either do from this machine or I can do from this machine, but I've got a mobile device and a few other bits and bobs that should all work, but just bear with me just in case there's a couple of technical glitches on the network side, but we should be fine, and with this one I think I'm okay. What is it that we're going to do today? So we're just going to go through literally what it is Matrix 42 does with ServiceNow. Matrix 42 has been around 20 years. So what does that mean? It means that we're stable, that we've been around a long time. We're predominantly a German company. And hopefully when you think of a German company, you think of well-engineered, solid, steady, process-driven. All the good things about Germany, and none of the jokes that I'm sure you can all dream up in 5 seconds flat. We're very proud to be celebrating our 20th year in business. We met over 1,000 customers over the last 3 or 4 months, and the technology that we've been building and that we have built in probably the last 12 months, I would say, has been integrated very tightly with ServiceNow. And we've been working with ServiceNow in San Diego. We've been doing technical accreditations with our engineers on site to make sure that all of this stuff works properly, works in accordance with how it needs to work, and is useful. Because if it's not useful, who cares, right? What's our mission? Where are we coming from? Is employees want to be productive. And we're very much in the business of automating and allowing IT to keep control and to put processes in place, but letting end users or do things on behalf of end users in a way that keeps them happier. And if you look at something like ServiceNow with the social chat and the social IT and all this service catalog that's on offer with ServiceNow, particularly out to students but also to staff, we're enabling some of that stuff at the base level. And hopefully you'll see that in the demo. So it's all about automation, if nothing else. What are the main components? So there's 5 main areas that we're working with. I'll show you exactly how the self-service side of ServiceNow plugs in with Matrix 42 to allow you to do various things. And really, it's 4 further things. So it's to deploy and work and manage and automate physical devices. And we have our own solution in that space. Or if you have something like, let's say, SCCM, Microsoft SCCM, then we integrate with that. We're not our way or the highway. It's kind of either or. You choose the best solution, and then we make sure that ServiceNow can integrate fully with it. Yesterday, when I was at the user group, how many people run SCCM? Quite a few. How many integrate it with ServiceNow? At the moment, not very many. This technology makes it possible. And not just inventory information, but full management, full deployment, full software request with approvals, and have I got a license for it, and all that good stuff is enabled by our technology, in conjunction with devices on laptops that make it happen, either ours or somebody else's if you want to go that way. We also integrate with virtual workspaces, so if you're running Citrix, then we're integrating with Citrix in order to provide virtual desktops. I think I asked a question before, you don't run Citrix at all, do you? The most common scenario, and I'll move on from this, where we see this working is contractors. So contractors need a desktop that's inside perhaps the university network, but you don't want to give them a laptop. So virtual desktops allow you to do that, and this automation allows you to integrate a nice front end with procurement at the back end, or provisioning at the back end. The third thing that I'll show you is we also work with mobile devices, and mobile devices are, exploding at the moment. I guarantee every student on the campus has got some smart device that's doing some pretty clever stuff. And
Or free.
yeah, at least. Probably got one for Christmas. I think I said yesterday in the user group, 36 million tablets were given for Christmas this year globally, as well as the 100 million that are already in existence, over 1 billion smartphones in existence right now being used. People want to use those things, but they need to be, let's say, secure and managed, and they need to adhere to certain policies before you can let those devices go anywhere near a network, whether it's staff or whether it's students. And one of our solutions on the mobile side, which I'll show you, allows you to keep control of somebody else's mobile device, but without compromising it and without deleting all their favorite pictures of their kids, that sort of thing. So you can ensure that the security is right without making it too difficult or too hard for those people to do it. And certainly we see, when I did this yesterday, how many people want to do bring your own device? Half the hands went up straight away. How many people will never do bring your own device? Probably about 6 hands out of 65. So everyone has a different view, but we've got the technology to enable it. And we integrate that directly with ServiceNow. The fourth area, and this again is something that is perhaps a personal hobby horse of mine, is software license compliance. Software license compliance is all about, I've got Microsoft Office on my PC. Where did it come from? What contract is it under? How much money do we owe to whom and when? And one of the things that we do that ServiceNow doesn't particularly do is we have a team of guys in Karlsruhe in Germany and some in Kiev who are literally building fingerprints, we call them. So how do I identify uniquely a piece of software that's on, let's say, a laptop or a Mac or an iPhone? That fingerprint allows us very correctly to say, this is Office 2007, it came off the software assurance CD, and therefore you need a software assurance contract to be in compliance. And if you install something from a different CD, you're now out of compliance. Why is this important? Because if you ever go through an audit situation, or you ever want true software compliance, you need to have that list of fingerprints rolling up into real products, and then understanding which licenses, which contracts make you in compliance, and which contracts are out of compliance, what the downgrade rights are and the upgrade rights. All of these different things are factored into our license compliance solution. And what we do is we take that data that's coming off the PCs, we run it through our compliance engine, and then in effect we pump it up into ServiceNow. So the ServiceNow piece will do the asset compliance, but it's not got the fingerprint capability. Okay? So hopefully that makes some sense. If it doesn't, I can take some questions perhaps later or now if anybody wants, before I sort of drop down a little.
Now?
Sure.
Is Citrix the only thing client you support?
In essence, yes. So on the hypervisor level, we support VMware, Hyper-V, and Citrix Zen Server. But once you take that up a level to the virtual desktop technology, then we're only supporting Citrix. So if you're using VMware's vDesktop or whatever it's called, then that's not an area that we have direct integration. But the capabilities that we have in that space, things like capturing gold images, updating gold images, putting the gold images onto storage, that side of things we can do. But the last sort of element of it, which is then putting it into a desktop tool pool and publishing it, that's the bit we do for Citrix, but not for VMware.
Cool.
So, what is it that we're integrating with ServiceNow? And I'll drop into the demo after this slide. 5 main areas. So, virtualization, mobile, which I'll show you, workplace automation, our physical solution, which I'll show you a little bit of, compliance, which I'll just do a couple of reports, and remote control. So one of the things we're offering is a remote control solution, completely cloud hosted. So ServiceNow is going to be cloud hosted, and of course, do you want to put things on site when you could have a cloud hosted option? Why not take the cloud hosted options? No extra cost. It's actually easier for us in a way, and it's integrated directly with ServiceNow. And I'll demo that. So those are the 5 main areas. I think in the RFI, we certainly responded to 1, 2, 3 of those at least. So that should make some sense. Right. Let's see if I can demo some of this stuff then. This is where I either get paid the big bucks or I don't. So what I've got, so we'll just see if that virtual workplace is all working for me. Now I'm just testing out the internet connection first because I'm using my phone to connect to the internet. And if not, I'll use the other PC.
You're not on Vodafone.
I am on Vodafone actually. Well, that's on 3, that's on Vodafone. So far 3's the winner, I have to say that. Okay, good. So it looks like we're connected to the internet, so let's take a typical scenario and go through some of the use cases. So I'm logged in as Tim Tober. So I'm just going to have to log in again. In fact, I wonder if it might be easier to do it on this one. See if I can do that. Main PC. Oh, in fact, let me just switch there. Yeah. Oh well. I'll do some of it on this one, and then we'll see what happens. Because it's all in the cloud, it doesn't particularly matter. So what we've done is we've taken the service. So all the automation that I'm going to do as an end user can be done by somebody on the service desk on behalf of that end user as well. So the automation is the same either way. I just like to show it from the end user's perspective. You go into the service catalog from ServiceNow. It's called the Enterprise Service Store, I think. And what we've done is we've basically placed an extra element in that. And you can skin this and build this any way you like. Some of the comments yesterday ranged from, it's not that pretty, to actually it works just fine. So I don't know if you've all seen this or if you have a particular opinion. I think it looks fine, but that's just me. So what we do is we place these services into both the end user space and also into the automation for the service desk person's space. So the automation's the same. If we want to enroll, say, something like a mobile device, then what we're able to do is jump in here, and perhaps not so relevant for yourselves, but we can do things like international roaming, turn on, turn off, which is particularly useful when you pitch up in Germany, for example, and your phone don't work. So you can, as long as you can get hold of the a browser from somewhere, you can log in with your AD credentials and request the roaming. I'm going to request an enrollment for a device. And all we need is 2 bits of information to be able to enroll either a corporate or a personal device. Doesn't matter whether it's one or the other. All that matters is once it's designated corporate or personal, you apply policies to it. So you might have different policies for personal devices than for corporate devices or university devices. So let's put in an email here. And all these devices that you get given for Christmas, you have to put an email on them typically. So I'm going to use this one here. And this is just the personal email that's on the device. It could just as easily be the phone number if it's a phone. Okay, we're going to send a link to it. And what happens in the background, I'll explain in a second. Is when I place that order, that can go through a whole authorization step if you want it to. That could be linked to procuring the device as well. It's entirely up to you how you build that. This particular one's just going to go straight through and do it, obviously for demo purposes. What it does is it sends a request via the Active Directory authentication to the mobile device management solution that's also hosted in the cloud. It generates a token, and then it sends an email to the email address I just typed in, or a text if I'd typed a number, with a unique token that's valid for 20 minutes. If I don't click on the link in 20 minutes, token's invalid, I can't register anything. If I forward it somewhere else, that's okay. I can register any device, right? We're not fussy about the device at this stage, but 20 minutes and it's all over. So what we should see, with a bit of luck, oh, we might have to, let me just switch back to this. So hopefully you can see there's a new email from Matrix42. And if I click on that email, you can see there's a link there. And all I do as the end user or as the staff member, I click on the link. Everything at this point now is taken care of automatically. Now, if it's an Apple device, Apple are very strict about letting the user be in charge of the experience. Android, similar, but if you go Android Safe, which is from Samsung, and its specific devices have that, then you can get a much more locked down way of doing things. But I think we had this debate last time. It's important to remember that the user's kind of opting into being managed here. And so one of the things you must do is have a policy that says, if you breach these policies, we're going to A, kick you out the network, the software will do that, but B, somebody's going to have a word with you as well. Or maybe not, but it's entirely up to you how you do it. But the user's in charge, that's the key thing. So what this is doing is this is dropping policies and profiles onto the device. It's checking the status of it, the security of it. It's making sure it's encrypted. That's just going to take a second to go through. It's doing an inventory of it to make sure there's no naughty applications that perhaps we've blacklisted. And it's doing a whole series of checks before it even lets it on the network. Okay? And then what it'll do in a second, in fact, you can already see it. First thing it's asking me to do, set a passcode. I got this for Christmas. I didn't put a passcode on it because it's easier for me just to swipe it. First policy, passcode, please. No passcode, no access. So it's making me do it. And you can put complexity levels into this, all sorts of stuff. And certainly with Apple devices, what happens is when you put a passcode on it, it now encrypts the device. Apple have a very clever technology that allows the encryption to be turned on pretty much instantly. With Android, you have to then encrypt the device, which can take up to an hour. So that's just going to take a second to do that. And in the meantime, you know, that's taking the inventory, putting it into our system, checking any apps that we're going to download to it, and getting it ready, putting corporate email onto it. So what we should see, in fact, you can see it there. So that's dropping some extra icons on there. So these are things being pushed out. That'll ask for Citrix in a minute. And remember, you've got to type in the password there. So with Apple devices, you can pre-provision, you can buy licenses and assign them out. You can do all sorts of clever stuff. With Android, they're not quite as advanced on that front, but most of the functionality is the same. Now, if I go back to the email, what we'll see now is I've had company account dropped onto there and a demo exchange as well. So that started off with one email account. I've just provisioned 2 more. So now I've got a fully functioning mobile device that's going to work, you know, with the corporate network, and we know it's secure. We know it's passed all our policies.
Where has it got the account credentials for those company accounts?
Active Directory. So the mobile device instance that's hosted will have a connection to Active Directory or LDAP in order to authenticate and to pull that user information up.
So the passwords for our user accounts need to be unencrypted in those?
No, it uses ADSSL. So it's using an SSL connection between Active Directory, which is presumably on site here somewhere,
Yes.
and the mobile device instance.
Yeah.
Or you can use a middleware, which is effectively a brokering technology that will achieve the same goal but in a more secure fashion. So rather than having a direct link in, you can then firewall things off and do it a level more secure, if you like.
Don't think you're quite answering my question there. The actual credentials for this end user
Yep.
are not stored in a retrievable fashion in Active Directory. They are encrypted in Active Directory.
Sure.
In order for this to work with our email servers, which are not Exchange, and
No, you're Gmail, aren't you?
related to Active Directory, we need to have a plain text password.
No. I will guarantee you there's no plain text passwords needed for this. So let me ask the specific question about Gmail, but we have other Gmail customers who are using this. And Android in particular is going to work with that, but I know Apple does as well.
I'm not saying plain text over an unencrypted link. I'm not concerned about that. I'm saying it just needs the plain text password in order to actually establish the link to the mail provider.
No. So what we're doing is in the mobile device instance, we basically specify the password that's going to be needed to connect to the Exchange or Gmail server, whatever it happens to be.
That's what I'm telling you, you don't have.
Well, let's take the question offline. I can find out. Okay. So I've now got a password, so it takes me 10 seconds longer to get into my device. In this particular case, it's asking me for a password, but usually you can make it Just grab it first time. And you know, we're in business. So the mobile device use case is quite simple. Now there's a couple more things, and then I'll move on to some of the other use cases. What we should see is in here, and it just takes a couple of minutes to come through, but it's done it. So here I am, Tim Tober, in his enterprise catalog. If he goes into my pro...
Switch your input, mate.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I could see that. You have to remind me to do that. I've got it all here. So what you'll see here is Mark's iPhone is my backup plan. That's this one. I registered it earlier. What we've also got is iPad 2. That name will become a nice name shortly, but basically it's registered in the system. It's assigned to Tim Tober, who requested it. And the nice thing is he can do things to it. So if I scroll down here, he's got some functions that he can do himself to that device. The classic one, and this only dawned on me the other day, I leave this in a meeting room, and let's say Stuart thinks, oh, this will be fun, I'll send some emails to some of his mates, or something perhaps a little worse. What I can do is I can do a lock device, and no matter who's on this device, no matter what's happening, within a few seconds, and we'll see that in a moment, so you get the dialogue there, and then it will jump, and that should lock the device pretty much instantly. And it uses the mobile phone network or the wireless link that it's on to do that. So you get a little bit of feedback up there, and hopefully he says, in the demo gods are on my side. There you go, locked. So that will happen no matter who's on it and what they're doing. So you leave it in a meeting room, somebody starts fishing through your email, boom, locked. So first thing you do is go and lock it yourself, or phone the service desk and say, for goodness sake, lock that device. Another very common situation, and again, this is saving time now, is clear passcode. Why bother the service desk to clear the passcode that I've been forced to put on my device when I can clear that passcode myself? And again, just takes a few seconds, uses the over-the-air network to make it happen. And then the first thing it's going to do, let me in, put a passcode back on it, please. So, hopefully.
Switch the input.
Please remind me about that, I will forget. So what we should see there is I'm straight in. But of course now I've got to set a passcode again because the policy is to have a passcode. And you know, that's just giving us a level of control over our own device, but making sure that we're in compliance. The third thing that perhaps I'll finish on with the mobile stuff is corporate wipe. I've left it in a taxi. I might get it back, I might not. So what do? Phone the service desk or do it myself, corporate wipe.
Switch the input.
So again, it was just that third option down there. Corporate wipe, okay. We'll switch the input this time. And it makes a phone ring. Now there's also a Find device that does make the phone ring actually. But what we'll see again within a few seconds is those icons will start to disappear. And that'll be the corporate wipe going through. And what that does is that removes everything that was provisioned in the first place, but nothing that was on it to start with. So all the pictures, all the apps, everything I had on there before, you know, from Christmas, that's still there. But all the corporate stuff is removed. And we can guarantee it's removed. There's a lot more functionality in this, but that's kind of where I wanted to finish with this for the moment.
It's removed the profile as well, is it? Or?
Yeah, everything. It's back to being what it was, you know, when I walked into here. So, you know, the emails are gone, we're just back to the Gmail now and all that stuff. Okay? So next use case I was going to go into
Can I
switch.
just ask you one question?
Sure,
Tim?
sure.
You mentioned the issue about Androids. How is that system with Chromebooks? Which we have quite a lot of them.
What's Chromebook running? Is it running a version of Android? Or is it running something else? Chrome OS, isn't it?
Browser, and that's all.
Yeah. So I'll have to take that offline. I don't know is the short answer. So I think the underlying operating system's a flavour of Linux, isn't it? But it's just booted into flash RAM each time, isn't it?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't develop them, but it's...
Yeah, and then all the apps are within the browser.
Yeah.
Let me ask a question. It's a good question. To be fair, we don't see an awful lot of Chromebooks, but I deal, you know, with some education, but mainly corporates, and corporates don't like them. because they're hard to manage probably. But the world is changing, and if you've got more internet, then they suddenly become very attractive. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go through a request software, which is the integration with the physical side of things. Question?
No, it's just if you move on to the mobile stuff.
Yeah.
What you've done to do now.
Yeah,
Can
you
you
can't.
just to mention the App Store side of things and the secure folder.
Okay, sure.
You mentioned what
So
you
yeah, so I can present for an hour on mobile. Some of the additional functionality that you get here is one of the things is a secure content locker. What's a secure content locker? It's a way for us to put documents, videos, anything that can be viewed on this device. We can put it into a secure area on the device, which allows it to be viewed, just like you would natively, but you can't forward it, you can't print it. You can control how long it's on the device for, and then it's removed after a certain amount of time. You can also do things like geofencing. So you can say, if you're on campus, we're going to allow everything and have certain policies that will be enabled. If you step off campus, or maybe we don't know where you are, then we're going to disable a load of policies. So one of the classic examples is I've got a sensitive document on here. What happens if I go into Jacobs and whatever it was, and I'm reading it in there, and the guy sat next to me happens to be quite interested in what I'm reading and looks over my shoulder? Geofencing allows you to make sure it's only visible in certain areas based on the GPS location of the device. So there's some quite good technology in there. The secure content locker allows you to control that. The App Store, you can go for either blacklist or whitelist approach. So the App Store's got every application known to man on it, but there might be 20 that you're really unhappy to have on these devices, and you just block them. Or you can go for the whitelist approach, which is I'm not going to let you have access to anything on the App Store, but I'm going to provide another App Store with just the applications that we allow. So you could have the 50 applications that you will allow, and they won't be able to load anything else. So one of the policies, I'm just going to. So if one of the simple policies to do is to turn off that app. Oh,
Laptop.
no, he's on. You can turn off the App Store there, or you can turn off in-app purchases. So particularly if it's a company-owned device and you don't want people to spend money, then you might do it that way. And then you have, I've not provisioned it here, but you basically get an icon which is the internal App Store with just the apps that you allow.
So if we were to, I don't know how it works, but if we were to purchase apps on behalf of users, we could have them allocation
Yep.
through the App Store.
But be careful, that's only an Apple function. You can't do that with Android, because Android don't allow the bulk purchase of apps, whereas Apple do. So all of this stuff is, Windows Phone 8, it's coming up fast, It's they've just announced a load more management capabilities with Windows Phone 8. 3 months ago, you could reset a password. That was it. That was the only function you could do. That's now moved up quite nicely, but it's still 2.5 years behind what Apple are doing, and Android are probably about a year behind what Apple are doing. So making it more management friendly, if you like. There's a load of other features there, but I think I'll finish on that for the moment. Maybe we'll look at some of the physical stuff next. So, if I switch over main PC. Now this is something where I just need to check something for a moment. So I've got a PC that I host where I do some of the testing, but I just need to just check one thing. Here we are, connecting, hopefully. Brilliant. So that's my test PC, that's Tim Tober's PC. And I'm just going to go through a fairly straightforward use case, which is requesting some software. Now again, requesting software is the easy bit. It's the procurement, the license compliance, all that side of things, which may or may not be interesting. You can put whichever workflow you like in ServiceNow to make that happen. We recommend certainly, some kind of management approval, my line manager. Typically we find line manager says, yes, you need Visio, go get it. And then somebody more senior or somebody in procurement then has to actually go and spend the money. So, you might have a one-step or a two-step. And again, you can check inventory and have a one-step if there's inventory and two-step if there isn't. The key thing is I can go in here, and one of the things, this is one of the screens that's perhaps, we can make this prettier if needed, put icons behind it. We can make software available. And in this particular case, I'm going to pick 7-zip. And because I'm Tim Tober, there are certain machines where I'm allowed to deliver software to, and the whole CMDB that sits behind this controls what I'm allowed to do. So in this particular case, I've got about 10, maybe I'm a desktop engineer, and I can pick one of them, and then I can order it. And what that's going to do is, again, that then causes the automation from Matrix 42 to then talk to the agent on this device, and that could be our agent, Matrix 42, or it could be SCCM. And within a few seconds, and I'll just give it a little jolt, what we should see, then we check for new approved software. I, as the user, now get a pop-up. Don't have to have that pop-up, but we typically find it's nice to tell people things are about to happen to their PC. And I can postpone it, I can run it, could be silent if we wanted it to be silent. And that's now going to deliver a 7-zip down onto this PC, job done. And again, I've made it visible so we can see what it does, but that can be totally under the covers. It's a fairly straightforward piece of automation in the grand scheme of things, but direct from ServiceNow and associated with me. Question? Thoughts?
Could you do that on multiple machines?
So from the ServiceNow interface, I don't think we've built it that way because it's an end user, but from Matrix 42, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So the Matrix 42 technology that sits underneath this can do the whole, is it version 7? Let's put it up to version 701 on every machine that has it. Or we want to put Office out to this group of machines and move machines in and out. And I can go into a more detailed thing perhaps in a few minutes. But yeah, the answer is it's a fully fledged system that's underneath.
Where are the installer files actually coming from?
So the installer files are sat primarily, so when you create the installer files, they're in effect on a share or a NAS with the Matrix 42 server. And then we move that down to, I think the term mid-server make any sense? So ServiceNow have this concept of a mid-server, we call it a sub-depot. Basically, it's a piece of file space somewhere. Now, the nice thing about Matrix 42 is as long as it's a share, some kind of a CIFS share or NAS, anything that's just got some file space, the agent knows where its nearest file space is, and it also knows from its IP address where it's located. So if you go over to the other campus, it'll go, oh, I need to use the file space over there, and then grabs that package and installs it. And the nice thing about Matrix 42 is we do desired state. So what that means is any software package can be delivered once, and if you remove it, it's gone. Or I can deliver it once and say, no, that stays. And if the user takes it off, or if it corrupts, maybe a file goes missing, Matrix 42 will put it back. And the really good thing about that is if I rebuild the machine, or if I get a different machine, that's now my new machine, I can rebuild it back to the exact state that the old one was in automatically. Because the desired state takes care of the apps. The personal backup, which is a product that's not part of the integration, but it's included, is able to back up people's important files and settings and favorites and all that sort of stuff. And those three together, the build, the software desired state, and the backup, put you back to where you were, but on a different piece of hardware. So you change the hard drive, no problem. Did it on my wife's PC just before Christmas. She had a 60 gig hard drive. We got a lot of photos on that now because we've got 2 small children. And it was a case of, I need to put a new hard drive in there. And so, new hard drive, put it back to desired state. It took, I don't know, maybe an hour and 20, something like that. Saved me a lot of time.
You're transferring an asset computer to a new user who's got different, is in a different business unit, is eligible for different software.
Yep.
Can you do the same thing?
Absolutely. So, let's see if we can get it. I mean, I'm going to just dip under the covers for a second. So if we look under the covers, and this is one of those moments where I could confuse the bejesus out of everybody, but hopefully it'll make more sense than confusion. The way it's working is we take either from Active Directory, so just concentrate on the middle piece here, either from AD or you build the structure yourself. You in effect have desired state groups. So for example, all the PCs that are in IT services are eligible for these pieces of software, and then as you go out the tree, there's other bits that the whole group's eligible for. If I move a PC from here into controlling, so in effect you drag and drop it, well you delete and add it, what it'll do, and you can set the policy, it can remove these bits of software and add these bits of software. But if you look out the tree, you know, Adobe Reader's valid for both groups, so that'll stay. So this desired state stuff works in the top half, if you like, and then the one-off assignments work in the bottom half, and you automate this. You can do it, you know, you can just drag and drop something in there. But for example, that 7-zip request that I made puts it there against this machine for single assignments so that it's tracked in effect. And then you have groups, you might have a Visio group there, a project group there, a CAD-CAM group there, or whatever. So one-off assignments you manage there, and desired state is the one above it.
Can I just ask you one slight clarification? Are you saying that there's a hierarchical system whereby standard software goes to all PCs and then you can split down into departmental sets that get increasingly less extra software as you go down the tree?
That's exactly it.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So if I look at clients, every client will get Adobe Reader. It'll get Matrix 42 remote control. It'll get, you know, Windows Pro 86 is the operating system that they get. And then if I go into a particular group, let's say Frankfurt, any machine that's in the Frankfurt group will get that package. And then if I go down another level, all the machines in IT services will in addition get those two. And if there's a conflict, the lowest level wins, the deepest level wins. Because it's quite easy to have Adobe 9 at the top, and then you might have a test group with Adobe 9.2. So the further down the stack you go,
Yeah.
you know, the closer you are, it takes precedence. But there's a lot of clever stuff in there. So just simple things like if I have a package with a version number and another one with an increased version number, we know, as long as the name and the publisher are the same, hey, if I drag and drop that on there, take off the old one, put on the new one, it's a software upgrade. So that becomes trivial. And I've worked with other systems in the past where that is a billy pain in the backside.
If you choose to integrate with SCCM,
Yep.
you manage it through console exactly the same way?
No. So if we choose to integrate with SCCM, we have a product called Enterprise Manager, which we put instead of what you just saw. And that then allows us to control SCCM in a similar fashion. But SCCM has its own console where you would do the mass upgrades, for example. And you'd be using SCCM to do your generic estate management. And then what we would do is the ServiceNow integration is doing the one-offs. You know, the I want 7-zip, that just literally drills into SCCM and makes SCCM deliver 7-zip instead of Matrix 42, instead of our physical solution.
What's the selling point of using yours rather than SCCM?
So ours is probably, what's the right reason? Easier to implement, much lighter on resources, easier to manage, easier to package, fully integrated with...
Can do Apples.
Yeah, can do Apple, can do Linux. Gosh, I haven't been asked that question for a while now. Sorry?
In your previous presentation, you said that deployments of, I know you just did software here, but deployments of OSs is something down your roadmap.
Yeah, that's right. It's so would you third-party patch management's another one. So patching Adobe and all that sort of stuff. So Apple inventory and software delivery and profile management is all capable today. Apple OS deployment is something that's roadmap, but not early this year, let's put it that way. So we have a release scheduled for about April. It's not in that release.
Are you about to talk about OS deployment in any detail?
I can do.
Talk about OS deployment. And
Sure.
How that works with the cloud model.
So so we use the sub depot. So basically what happens when you do OS deployment is you've got an image, so you can either use an image, a WIM image for example, or you can use the OS installer files, which is our preferred method. Why do we prefer OS installer files? It takes longer, surely that's not quite as good. But the beauty and the advantage that it gives us is we have a cloud driver database of about 10,000 drivers for various laptops and desktops. And when we use the OS installer method, it allows us to recognize the drivers automatically and insert them into the PC. So I rebuilt my father's PC the other day because I am the family IT guy. I was pleased as punch because literally I just Pixie booted it. You can Pixie boot, USB boot or CD boot. It finds the sub depot nearest to it, and then it downloads the OS installer files, about 4 gig for Windows 7, and then in effect it runs WinPE over the top to make the magic happen. And at that point it found 12 drivers, happy days, job done. And then it built that machine up to a known level, SP1, Windows 7 SP1, and then as a post-install we do a patch cycle to make sure it's patched up to the latest level. Desired state then puts the software back on that's assigned in that tree view that you saw. And then the final thing, which I've yet to do actually, is the personal backup. So my father has 2.5 gig of personal backup files. I can't do that over a remote link to the Isle of Wight because that's quite a big download. So I'm kind of scheduling a trip over there. But that was the last step. I didn't have time to do it at home. So, but it was a very elegant process. So the build and the software took about an hour and 10, hour and 20. So the OS build itself takes about 40 minutes from start to finish. From Pixie boot to I'm looking at a Windows 7 machine I can use. The software bit and the patch cycle obviously can take as long as the software takes. So that took about another 20 minutes in my case. And then the personality backup, probably 10 or 15 minutes, but because I switched PCs for him, I didn't give him back his old PC, I gave him a newer one. So I had to do the personal backup stuff later. That was just me. So you're looking at a total rebuild time. I think if you factored in an hour and 15, you'd be about right. But the beauty is that sub depot, that could be a partition on the hard drive. That could be a USB stick that you plug in the side. It doesn't have to be a managed device to be built. It can be, we've got field engineers that run around with a USB stick building machines. And because you use the OS installer and it's got the majority, the important drivers on that USB stick, it can just build stuff automatically. And the nice thing is the engineer kicks it off, logs on, and then the moment it's building, he can walk away and move on to whatever the next job is and go and have a coffee. So you don't have to sit there and watch the whole process from start to finish, because obviously when it comes up, the agent then checks in and starts doing the desired state and the patch management and all that. So that's a very typical way that our customers do this. So that's OS installer. We have the use case here. I won't show it because it does take a while, but you can recover a computer. So there's some snapshot technology that you can use. It's using Volume Shadow Service to literally take snapshots on a regular basis of the machine whilst it's running. Or reinstall computers, this desired state stuff that I've exactly been talking about. So completely rebuild it properly. Because of course, if you're taking snapshots of the machine, that's only really good for rebuilding the same machine. If you put a different hard drive in that's bigger, or if you've got a different piece of hardware, then putting snapshots back generally becomes problematic. So we recommend the desired state stuff and the personal backup, which is capturing user settings and user files. I hope that's made some sense. If I go back to the slides, actually.
How would you deal with a scenario where you've got a number of machines to do that process with? So a room full of PCs, for example.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we can obviously push out the OS deployment job. We don't have to be at the machine to do it. We can tell it to Pixie boot and build itself. If we're doing multiple ones, then typically concurrently we can run about 10 at a time, maybe 8 to 10. But the only feature that we don't have is multicasting. That's one feature that we don't have in the product. So it was one of those things where other things took priority, and that the multicasting is a nice feature, but we find that you can Pixie boot between 5 and 10 machines quite happily, and actually once the first 5 or 10 are going, you can Pixie boot another 5 or 10, and the file copy stage takes maybe 4 minutes, 6 minutes, something like that. You'd phase them in batches of 10. That's what I'd do. That's what I've done in the past. So just to go back a step, what I'm talking and showing here, so inventory I'll come back to in a second, but that's the full inventory off the device. Software management sort of showed how the software can be deployed back down, 7-zip being the example. OS installer we've talked about, and I can do another session where we're going right into depth on this. Personal backup is files and settings and favorites. So it's not a complete OS snapshot, it's just the guts of what makes it a personal laptop. Yeah. System recovery is a full snapshot of the system, so proper backup. Password reset is something that we can enable quite easily using our automation. Yeah, we've had a couple of customers ask about this actually. So within the automation possibilities is a password reset one there. I don't know if that's interesting or not. I think it might have been requested in the RFI at some point, or...
That's an AD password reset.
Yeah. So we've got a connector into AD in effect. So we use that to either reset the password or let the service desk reset the password on behalf of the user. So all of those are included in our physical solution. Whereas, for example, with SCCM, you won't get that, you won't get that, you won't get that, and you won't get anything for Apples or Linux. So, but if you get your educational discount from Microsoft, maybe that's okay. People choose, and we don't dictate.
But it's one or the other.
Well, no, because we're integrating with SCCM if that's the agent that's on the desktop. So ServiceNow won't talk to SCCM out of the box, but with Matrix 42 it will, and it'll make the same functionality we're looking at work. So it's just up to you to choose which agent you want to put on the desktops. Is effectively where you're going to get to.
What would happen if you actually deployed software to multiple machines and one machine was off?
So because it's agent-based, when the agent powers up, it checks into Matrix 42's server, to the sub-depot actually, and it's got basically an XML file on the desk, on my laptop, and it compares it to a copy, if you like, that's on the sub-depot. If there are any changes, like an extra package has been inserted into that XML file, it then goes ahead and goes through the download and off it goes. You can also do internet management quite effectively because you can set the sub-depot based on the IP range or a DHCP option. If there is no option, default to a sub-depot that we're putting in the internet that's secured and firewalled off properly, but allows that machine to continue to be managed when it's not on one of the campuses, for example. But the agent just takes care of it. Same thing with inventory. So one of the big things about the difference between, let's say, ServiceNow Discovery and full inventory is Discovery is relying on being on a mid server and in effect pinging out and then connecting to stuff that it discovers. That's great for a data center, but for PCs that are mobile and moving around, you may or may not get a connection to that machine at a particular time. With an agent, the moment that it's connected to any of the sub-depots in any way, it will take the inventory it ran at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning and post it back for us. So we always have an up-to-date scan of every machine, or as up-to-date as it possibly could be, which we can then use for software license compliance, for example, or for CMDB or whatever else. So
the software, thinking about the software asset management side of things.
Yep.
Will it give us, because it's agent based, will it give us usage stats on
yes.
how long, what package, who's used it, when, where, etc. Will we be able to report that through ServiceNow?
Yes. Well, so I don't think we've integrated it into ServiceNow, but mainly because this is phase 2 that we're looking at, and that's kind of what else would we like to do. But the usage information is captured by the Matrix 42 agent, and it captures which user used which XE for how long and whether it was in foreground or background. I've never been cheered before, that's good. So the foreground and background thing is quite useful because sometimes you'll find applications like Microsoft Access, for example, might be fired up quite regularly, but never actually used. But it's up, so therefore it counts as a used one, but it wasn't in the foreground. So we're capturing all of that information, storing it in the back end. I mean, at the end of the day, we took a set of about maybe 100 things to push into the ServiceNow CMDB, but it's pretty easy to make it 102 things and include usage, as long as you have a place to use it once it's in there. But we have Crystal reports, SQL reporting services to get at the data as well, and that can be a report that's placed into ServiceNow. And I'll show you that in a second, actually. So, quite a lot on the physical side of there. Shall I move through a use case again? Go to perhaps the software license management?
Can I just,
Sure.
as these things occur to you, step back? You talk about multicasting.
Yep.
Can somebody in the room who knows more than I do confirm, does SCCM support multicasting direct? As far as folks know.
Well, it's the integration with WDS. It's that the WDS server manages the multicast sessions for SCCM and any other.
So effectively that's a yes then?
I think so, yeah. I mean,
Presumably, presumably you could use WDS for your image, for your OS deployment with the full Matrix 42
You can do,
plugin
yeah.
if you wanted to.
So we have some customers who, so remember, if you use the OS installer method, you get access to our 10,000 drivers growing every day for free. If you use pure Microsoft, in particular if you're using Wim images, then that driver stuff is kind of redundant in a way, and then you have to make sure that those drivers are inserted into the image, and that whenever a new model comes out, you insert those drivers in there too. So I did some work with a well-known mobile phone manufacturer in Scandinavia. There's only two, you can probably figure it out. And they had a 6 gig Wim image and a 5 gig driver file that came with it. So they had to put 11 gigs onto every machine they built, and then they delete the 5 gigs of drivers at the end. Okay, fair enough, that's a way to do it. But with our methodology, with the OS installer, and I know the multicasting is a particular use case for perhaps building 50 PCs at a time, but with the OS installer and the drivers, we update that list automatically. So you can just tick a box, literally, and then the next time a machine with those drivers gets built, it's found, it's automatic, it's done. And you can submit machines to our team, in effect, to say, here's 19 drivers on this brand new Viglin that hasn't been recognised. Could you please go find them and add them and put them in the cloud for me? And we'll do that. That's part of the service.
Would it be post OS installed drivers, so you have generic drivers on the Wim?
Sorry, say that again?
Post install, so could you install drivers after you've installed say a Wim image with generic drivers on it? The Matrix will to check all the correct drivers on the machine.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So the way we're checking the drivers is we're booting into a Linux kernel. That's how we get the drivers' unique IDs and then match them up to the drivers we've got. So could we do that? I'm not sure is the honest answer. If you can take a question, I can answer it.
Are you talking about machines that have already been built and they're just checking?
Yeah, and they might have 6 drivers missing.
Yeah.
So can Matrix 42 run a scan on the machine and go, oh yeah, I recognise those and put them in? Let me ask the question. I mean, it might be something where we can boot it into Linux and then it would do that. I'm not sure we do it within Windows, but I can ask the question. Okay, so software license compliance. Let's do main PC, I think. And then we'll go back to, hopefully you can see that. So we're in Firefox. So what Matrix 42 is doing is it's pulling a whole load of information from, in effect, the agents on PCs. It could be SCCM, could be obviously Matrix 42, and loading them here into SCCM CMDB. ServiceNow CMDB. So you can see here things like mobile devices, which obviously we just pulled in, Mark's iPad, Mark's iPhone, assigned to Tim Tober. So those are those 2 machines there. Things like computers. If we scroll down the computer list, the interesting one is PC 1030. And now, this looks a bit ugly. When you have a wider screen, it looks much prettier, but if we look down here, it's picked up the drive, the network connections, and then these are the software products as identified using our fingerprinting technology. Okay? So these are the ones you need to care about in terms of does it have a license or doesn't it? As opposed to all the patches and all the XEs that are laying around on a PC that are just chaff, if you like. So that information's brought straight in, and that then allows us, you know, and you've got a whole load of other information here, like, I don't know, DNS names and all of that. And then if we go down to the license compliance, I'm just going to have to log on to this one because I'm using a different PC. So it's X42/ and hopefully that should that'll then present the reports into ServiceNow from our license compliance engine. So the big thing about license compliance is you've got rules in place, like if I remove Visio from my laptop, 90 days later we can reclaim the license. 89 days later we still owe Microsoft £400. And so we're tracking that level of information. So we compare inventory scans to say, oh, 90 days has gone by, right, that's one extra in the pot. And there's a whole load of really complex rules. I'll not go into too much detail, but the one that our compliance manager told me, which, right, so you just have to bear with the size of the screen there. There's graphs and information there. But the one that intrigued me was if you access Microsoft Office from your iPad into a virtual desktop, there are 4 types of license, unless you've just got a big blanket enterprise agreement with software assurance. You've got, is it a personal device or an owned device, company device? So that's 2 different licenses. Am I inside the network or outside the corporate network? And there's 4 CALs for that, unless you go down the enterprise agreement route with Microsoft. So all of that information is stuff that we track in our software license compliance module, and then push that information up into ServiceNow in a sort of a highlight, if you like. So this is your risk based on software that, you know, has been out there without a name, and usage saving potential is comparing the, you talked about application usage. So we can tell if applications have been used. If they've been used, then obviously it's worth paying a license for them. But again, you know, this one's a bit uglier, but it's basically saying Helios hasn't been used this year or the last 6 months, so therefore there's $92 that could be saved. So we're just attaching usage information to costings to give potential, you know, savings back out of that. So all that information's tracked, but the nice thing is all the license compliance stuff is pretty much automatic. And that's a big step if you're going to get audited. If you're going to just buy blanket agreements, then that's fine. You'll never get audited because, you know, the vendors will be very happy. I wasn't going to go into much more detail on software license compliance because, again, it's a very specific audience I tend to find. But we've got a lot of depth in there. That's the key thing. I'm just going to go on to one more use case.
Just where I'm still sort of on about software. You said creating the actual packages to damn so it's easier on just when you're using ServiceNow.
Yeah. So I'll tell you exactly why. Because now this hasn't been in the tender because we're just about to announce a application packaging service that costs how much?
£3,000.
£3,000 per year. It includes 180 software products on day one, mostly Microsoft, Adobe, and a few others, and that list will grow. It's hosted in the cloud, and it'll give you the ability to have a software package within Matrix 42 where the only thing you do is provide the source files from a CD. So you just copy them over. And then the installation routine, the MSTs, the transforms, all of that stuff will have packaged that up in the cloud and made available as part of this service. But obviously the source files we're not going to make available because then you get into distribution agreement problems with Microsoft and all the rest of it. But the beauty is when you package an application, even Office, you've got to go through and you've got to do, you know, you've got to create the transform, create the different ways that it looks. We'll do that for you as part of this service.
Is that a package for installation?
Yes.
Or live streaming?
It's a package for installation. We're not doing streaming, I don't think. But again, Stuart, can you write the question down? Because I'd love to know that. Do you use streaming from Microsoft? Or can you?
We're looking towards a separate product.
So not Microsoft's one. Which one are you going to use?
Application Jukebox.
Yep, I've heard of Application Jukebox. So yeah, I don't think we do anything particularly with Application Jukebox, but I understand the concept. And I think if you've got an MSI, or if you've got a well-packaged application, it's quite easy, isn't it? So Stuart and I used to work for a vendor that did software virtualization, and you could, I'm pretty sure you could run a batch file on a folder with all apps in it, and it would make them streaming ready. Does it do this block type stuff, or is it sequencing it?
It's kind of sequencing. It downloads as little as it needs to begin with, and then brings down chunks as you.
Maybe we can talk offline, because I know a similar technology before that would chop up an application into chunks. So it would actually take the MSI as it was and do it. You didn't have to do anything except kind of load it into Jukebox, if you like. But I don't know, it depends on how they're doing it. But I've heard of Application Jukebox before. I think they're quite predominant in the education sector, aren't they? So we can ask the question, and I'd love to know. So any more questions before I jump onto the final use case?
Deeper thing, all of the pool room PCs like the Vigilant have got Intel main boards with the Intel management engine on it.
Mm-hmm.
Does anything you provide use vPro software to interface with that?
Yes. So we fully support Intel AMT.
So we can do remotes.
Yep.
Reboot the machine even if it's not switched on. Because
Yeah.
obviously your agent runs under Windows. So if your agent's not running under Windows, we can F12 it and force it to reboot.
So, yeah, so in my dark and distant past, I was the Intel AMT champion in about 2006 when it first came out. So I know that technology pretty well, and yes, we support it. So basically what we do is you can either remote into a device using the DOS-based remote capability, or you can issue a command before a software delivery to say, wake it up, because it's got 5 sleep states or something, isn't it? Depending on which, and the AMT stuff allowed. So yes, is the short answer.
You can force it to boot from a remote CD and force it to boot from a remote file, and all that is integrated into Matrix 42.
So there's 2 levels of AMT. I'll have to check. The first level, definitely. The boot off a remote file, which I know is a capability. Stuart, can you write that one down? I'll check that one for you.
Version 6 has a remote KVM capability, which is required for vPro software. That's standard as it comes installed in the drivers don't. But if you've got vPro software, and that's the bit we'd be quite interested in.
Okay, well, let me check that for you. I know we have AMT support, but exactly which parts of AMT we support is the bit I'll check. But I know that technology quite well. I think I had the first HP prototype AMT box given to me in 2006. Still works well.
Excellent.
So, okay. Any more questions before I jump on to remote control, just to show that? Okay, getting warm in here, isn't it? So let's, right, now I have to have a little think here, because I'm going to try and do a remote control. Right, let's do this. So, right, let's, yeah, I'll do it this way, I think. I don't know what we're doing. Right, just bear with me a second. I just have to set this up a certain way, mainly because I'm using 2 demo machines with iffy connections, or one iffy connection. If I download something onto this, is it going to install, or is it going to just bomb me out? It's going to say no, isn't it?
Depends if you need a reboot or not.
No, it's just going to be in the browser. It's going to download an exe in the browser.
If you download, you'll probably get away with that.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll try it out. We'll try it out. Let me see. So which machine am I
Will you
on?
get away with that, Mike?
The standalone exe.
Yeah, it's
That was the installer.
it's an exe.
Yeah, just stick it in the roll.
Should work.
Use the specs, it should work.
All right, let's do this then. So this machine here is, I can do it a different way if not. So we're logged on as Maria Miller. Have any of you seen the social chat element of ServiceNow? Yeah, 1 or 2 of you? Okay, well I'll show it to you, because I could just remote control from an incident, all right? And that's fully supported. But you can also do it from a chat. It's the same functionality, just a slightly different way of accessing the session. So, if I just bear with me 1 second. Right, okay. So Maria's going to come in here. Maria's got a PC. Maria's got trouble. What's she going to do? The youth of today love to do all this Facebook chat and all the rest of it. So one of the ServiceNow features that you've got is this ability to start a chat session, and then if I switch PCs, one of the service desk engineers basically just has that open and gets a pop-up if someone wants to chat for help. So you don't have to answer, but obviously in this demo I'm going to answer that chat, and I'm going to say, it's quite nice doing this with 2 PCs. What's up? And then if we go back to the laptop, you can see there's chat, off it goes. So what Tim's going to do is he's going to say, shall we remote control? And then he's going to start the remote control by clicking here. Okay. And then this is the moment of truth. Can I start the session? Okay, let's see what that does. Now this remote control is I guess we're in the middle of developing it for the demo. Because if you have it installed on the PC, then it doesn't do that step, it just runs. But because this is a brand new PC,
That's the Matrix 42 agent.
it's a remote control agent that in effect we OEM, but it's Matrix 42 software and supported software. So that starts a session with our cloud-hosted server on the internet. Good. So that's one half of the session started. Now, Maria, in her chat session, she got the same link. And if she had the number, actually, she could just type it into that session and get going that way. But from Maria's perspective, what we should be able to do is... Oh, have I done that? Yeah, you can see that, can't you? She starts her side of the session, connects to the same cloud-hosted server with the ID that's basically embedded in that URL, and in another couple of seconds, she'll get asked, do you actually want this session to start? Yeah, do I want to share all my applications, whatever? And that now starts the session. So, if I go back to the main PC, what you can see here now is that's the remote control session there. So I can go in here. God, that's good. So I'm remoting from here to the internet through Vodafone's mobile network to this laptop, which is remoted in Washington State. Fantastic. That's the internet for you, isn't it? Now let's see if it works. So what we should be able to do is, yeah, here we are. So we've got just traditional remote control. It's quite a good tool. You have to forgive the shameless plug. That one's already done it. So there you go. So remote control session, I mean, if I look over here, you know, we can do file transfers, we can do port mapper opener. It's got the UAT control, you know, this thing where you get the pop-up saying, are you sure it's going to do something dangerous? You can turn that off. We can record the sessions. You can whiteboard. Let's try that, shall we? Ooh. Blimey. It's doing stuff. I don't know. Don't worry, that's just the latency of the twice around the world packets that we're using to do this. So it's all there. It's a nice remote control tool. Beauty is completely remotely hosted, so nothing installed on premise, and obviously completely internet capable.
It seems to indicate that is other devices other than Windows.
So yeah, we do Apple with this, I think.
So you'll do a Mac, you'll do...
Yeah.
But it seems to indicate like iOS as well.
No. So it's interesting. iOS is one where Apple haven't enabled a remote control tool to work with iOS. You can remote from iOS, so I can use my iPad to start a session with somebody and control it. But for somebody to take control of this, that feature, as far as we're aware, is not available by anybody.
And this, just so I understand that I can see application of this for people who are off campus, where we can provide remote support.
Yep.
What are the licensing implications of that? Does the person on the other end have to have a license? Or be one of those 4,700 devices or whatever we've been quoted for?
I'll pass you over to my esteemed colleague Stuart. But usually we do.
Essentially, but obviously anything's open for negotiations. Depends how many people are outside of the license agreement.
Well, it'd be 30,000, would it? Potential.
I'm thinking about sort of bring your own device agenda. So, do you have a ceiling that you hit with your license anywhere? You just say, well, that's anything above that point is just that's included, or because theoretically, if you're saying there's 14 million mobile devices in whatever it is,
Yeah.
or we're Oxford Brooks, we get rich students, they might want 3 devices to be supported per user.
I think.
Sorry, it's probably not fair.
Yeah.
Not now, but it was just something.
Let's ask the question, because I think in the RFI tender it was very much about
It
the.
was very much about the
Every device that was going to be managed, as in PC or Mac, if it's a staff Mac or whatever, would be that included a remote control license. In terms of have we got the technical capability? Yes. What's it cost and how does it licensed? I don't know, and I think we'd have to go back and just check.
Yeah.
But certainly one of the offers that we made last time, and this is fully sanctioned by our VP of Product Management, is the personal backup tool we'll give to every student of Oxford Brookes free of charge, as part of a commercial negotiation with us. And that's just because that's our software, we own it, and it's actually quite useful. It'll just do regular little backups onto a USB drive when you lock the device, or when you turn it off if you want, and you'll just always have your most important files sat on a USB drive, so that if you ever need them back, you'll be very glad. It does version control and a few other bits. So that's free of charge, and that would be something you could offer out with no strings attached.
And that doesn't require the use of your agent installed on
No.
the PC. It's just a standalone application that
Absolutely.
doesn't have license implications.
No.
But if we want to do remote desktop or remote support
Yep.
into a student's device, it has to have the agent on.
No, it doesn't need the agent, because what you saw here was when I connected, it effectively downloaded a runtime version of the XE into memory at that point. But it made me save it because it was Firefox, but that's a real-time thing. So you don't, when that's finished, that XE stops running, and then it's just a file on the drive, but it's not running in any way. And if we do it again, it'll generate a different session. But the remote control doesn't require anything on the user's PC.
And there's no licensing implication for your product for us doing remote sessions onto. So if, for example, a student phones me and says, I can't get blah to work on my laptop,
Yep.
I can remote into them via the cloud without any licensing implications.
Right, that's the million-dollar question right
Yes.
now. So if it's one of the 4,700 PCs that are managed normally, the answer is absolutely no problem. If it's a student PC, one of the 30,000 students, that's what we've not included in the RFI. But we're going to go away.
Can you confirm for me then as well that 4,700, those are the 4,700 devices which can enrol as mobile devices as well? So the very first demo you gave us of enrolling the iPad,
Yeah.
that was one of the 4,700. That was not one of the
We have to take a step back here, because
90,000.
I believe in the RFI, I've got a copy of it here somewhere, we expressly said 4,700 devices, which includes servers. Right? For us, we are including servers and desktops in the same management realm in terms of the functionality. But I don't think we put.
No, just wanted to confirm.
Yeah, we didn't talk mobiles, and we didn't talk student remote control.
To be fair, it was a rough estimate of how many machines that we'd have that we want to do the inventory sampling.
I just wanted to understand, because obviously looking at that demo, your mind can go wild and think, ooh, that'll be great for managing all the student devices. But that's not actually what we're licensed
No, exactly.
to use it for.
Yes.
We need to
Yeah.
rewire it.
But I think you've got educational pricing for the mobile stuff, I know, because I think Berwin put that in for you. And the remote control, we can come back with a suggestion for a site license for remote control over the internet for anybody who's affiliated with Oxford Brookes, is effectively what it would be. So staff, students, PhD students, alma maters, the whole lot. Friend?
And the mobile device management, does that include fat Windows laptops, fat Mac laptops, etc., in terms of pushing out profiles to those, say, wireless profiles, mail profiles?
So, well, you achieve it in slightly different ways. So if it's a Mac device, there's a blurring of technologies, shall we say. So if you want to push out, let's say, a SID to a Windows laptop, there's various ways to do that, but you would use the physical stuff that we've got there, probably perhaps a script or something like that. For the mobile or actually for Apple Macs, you have this concept of a profile, and that can be managed quite elegantly for iOS and Apple Mac devices. But Windows land is a bit different, so you use a different technology to achieve the same goal. But with iOS and with Macs, actually pushing out the SIDs is quite a good thing. It's one of the standard features. Is to say, here's a list of recognised wireless SIDs, and the device, once it's got those SIDs, it'll just connect to them, which is kind of what you want, because then you hide the SIDs on the wireless end and you're in business.
Important piece about the mobiles here. So our mobile piece is powered by AirWatch, who are the leaders in the mobile space. And in terms of kind of updates to mobile, AirWatch get the updates within an hour of Apple releasing their latest versions, whereas anyone that's got an iOS device will find for a week afterwards they're still getting updates in the App Store saying this version is available to support the latest version of Apple, whereas our version is updated almost instantly.
Yeah, same with Android. And same with Windows Phone 8. It gives us a lot of capability on those devices. BlackBerry, don't know. You've got to have a BES server for BlackBerry, and we do a couple of things with that, but not much. So, okay. So just to finish on the remote control, you can see here, you can invite other people into a session, which is quite useful if you get somebody in the third line to help you out. You can just give them the session and step off and it will continue going. It's peer-to-peer, so it remote controls from where you're sat to where the user is sat, and it doesn't need anything other than those two connections and the internet in between, obviously with our cloud-hosted server. It's a pretty good tool. And final thing, perhaps, is what it will do. So at the end of the session, you get a log, and again, at the moment, relatively basic, telling you who did what and when, and we'll do more as time goes by. But what we'll see here, hopefully, is if I look at one of these, I think it's this one. Yeah, if you start a remote control session from an incident, it logs the details of the remote session in the incident. If you start it from a chat, you can create an incident, but the remote log's there, but we've just not tied it together. But if you do it from the incident, then the remote session's recorded directly in the journal.
When you say recorded?
Well, the log entries that you see here.
Just start finish, not actually a video of...
Let me check on that, because we can take a video of the remote session, I just don't know where it's stored. But we've got a couple of specialists in San Diego, which is where ServiceNow is based, who are literally adding stuff to this, and every 3 months or so we have a big round robin globally where we say, okay, what features would we like to add in next? And half the time, the beauty of ServiceNow is it's a platform with a really interesting and elegant framework for doing things. And so from our perspective, it's actually quite easy for us to make this happen. And so we can do things like that quite easily, and then it becomes part of the product. And that's, ServiceNow is enabling that, but it makes it easy for the integration to work quite seamlessly.
I know it wasn't part of the original tender, and I know that it's not necessarily in scope, but I wonder if you could just give us a little outline, because I noticed on your website that you also have a plugin for power management.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just to because it's on our agenda, it's something that we need to look at. But what does it do?
Okay, I'll explain because I'm not sure if I've got something I can demo. Basically, what we did was we developed in conjunction with a company called Verizon, who are one of America's biggest broadband and mobile phone operators, the power management stuff. So in the States, they're all getting rebates off their energy companies if they can prove that they drove down power usage in their estates. So in the US, you can get big fat checks off the energy companies for doing that. In the UK, we don't really do that very much. I don't know if there's an incentive for Oxford Brookes to save energy.
For us, there's a fund.
Oh yeah. I'll talk to you later about that then.
And there's the carbon reduction commitment that we have to say.
Yeah, because so I got involved in this about 3 years ago.
The whole green.
That's the whole thing.
Right.
So I went to visit one of the councils down in Devon, I think it was, and they'd just got into this carbon reduction stuff. But their answer, which I was a bit sad in a way, they were going to strip out all the working bulbs in all the council buildings and put in energy saving ones. And that was the year one reduction sorted. Cost a lot of bulbs, but got the CRC tick in the box. What we're doing with PCs, what Verizon wanted very specifically was the ability to shut down PCs that were unused, providing they didn't have unsaved documents. So there's basically a piece of software that checks, it tries to shut it down. If there's any kind of you need to save something, it'll just leave it alone. Okay, we're not doing the next step, which might be to automatically save. We're just checking if a machine is in an idle state and if there's nothing unsaved. We'll then shut that machine down. We do full reporting on the before and after states of the energy consumption of the devices, and of course we understand this is a Dell D6510 that consumes 60 watts normally, and if it's in standby state 3 AMT, then it's consuming 12 watts and 2 watts if it's in standby state 5. So all of that's picked up, reported.
So just to clear,
Yeah.
there's a solution that we used in the past where we had to define profiles for different types of machine.
Yeah.
Do you have a database that knows how much a D620?
Yes. Yeah, we do. So we've got a list of, I mean, it's not a comprehensive list, but it's all the sort of Dells and HPs and Lenovo's, the main ones that we see there. And the one, you just put them into classes otherwise. But I can arrange a full demo with one of the guys who knows this stuff quite well. But it's the key takeaways that I got was it can shut down a machine or put it into standby. You don't want to standby, you want to hibernate it or put it into standby. It can enforce obviously power management profiles. It won't shut it down if it's got unsaved documents, and it reports on the energy consumption before and after. I think it even can detect things like if there's a monitor and if it's, what state that's in as well. So peripherals, that sort of thing. So it ticked the box for Verizon, I know that.
Does it give you functionality within the service desk to be able to recycle a machine and that kind of thing?
To what, sorry?
Restart a machine?
Not in ServiceNow as it stands today, but everything that you've seen today is ServiceNow basically making SOAP calls into Matrix 42 to make something happen. So, a SOAP call is a relatively simple thing for us to set up as part of an implementation. It's something that we do all the time. And actually, power management, it tickles me how, I think it was something like, they were going to have a bad boys list of the UK, who were the worst energy criminals in the UK. And then it turned out that a lot of government departments were going to be on that list. So very quickly, it got sort of slowed down. But I'm glad to hear that there's a fund for it, because that was the key to it. If there's no cash saving, it's just about PR, which is nice, but doesn't pay the bills. But yeah, so I can get you more details on the power management side of things, and that's fully integrated in the Matrix 42 stack, so we can make calls or data accessible in ServiceNow quite easily. Even if it's just some of the reports to start with, that's a good place to start.
Presumably, if you've got it linked into AMT, you can turn everything off and just kick it into an S5 state at a particular time when you want it to work.
Yeah, so the software delivery and the patch management have the capability to issue that, S5 startup.
We've got machines going into S3 state, and seen about 1,200 machines going into S3 state that never actually turned off.
Yeah. What do they consume in S3? It's about 2 watts, isn't it? It's not much.
But
it's the ones that are on with all the peripherals on That's where your energy saving is in IT.
And is it compatible? The other thing that needs to be compatible with is Magic Packet wake up.
Yeah, totally spoiled. Yep.
Preferably not, preferably just
Well,
AMT.
that's what we use at the moment, but yeah.
We'd
Yeah.
like that to.
I would always advocate both, simply because the Magic Packet works far more often than it should do. And actually, we've just increased the functionality on the Magic Packet to include Magic Packet Proxy. So if you've blocked it at the router level, then we'll just pick a machine in the destination zone and it will send the Magic Packet, which is something we added in November.
If you had a remote element on a laptop and you wanted to actually come into your PC here and your PC was off, could you actually activate it?
With the remote control, you mean?
Providing you've got power to the main board and it's an AMT enabled board, you can do that through an S5 command, can't you?
Yeah, the AMT stuff definitely supports that. But that relies on the machine having a network connection into it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and a laptop, it has to have a physical Ethernet, can't do it. Did they ever get it to work over wireless?
I'm not aware of
It was on the roadmap and then it... Yeah? Oh, okay. Okay. So it would need a cable plugged into it and AMT will then turn it on. So you can issue an AMT command. There's even a toolkit that will allow you to issue AMT commands, but it depends on how you've done the authentication. Did you do the simple stuff or have you got the connection broker or whatever it was called?
The only time I know that we've been using Wake Up at a particular time, we did it through a batch file.
Using Wake on LAN or AMT?
AMT. Directly into AMT and telling it to whatever its state was, wake up at 7:30 in the morning in the teaching room.
So, because there's two ways to enable AMT. The first way is kind of what they call simple mode, which is where you have a simple password and you can just connect to the box with the simple password and make it do things.
Yeah.
And then the second way is where you use this Kerberos server, and it was incredibly complicated, which is why hardly anybody did it.
In answer to the question, is that a user-friendly, I can do it, or is that a, if you're technically minded and you can remote in, you can do it?
How technical are you? It's somewhere in the middle. I mean, at the end of the day, AMT will allow you to turn it on, but you've got to do it from the console. So, I mean, if I show you the console, perhaps that would help. But if you don't have access to the console, then you have to have some other way of using AMT. I'm on the wrong PC.
What type of users are we thinking of?
I'm just thinking in
Silly
terms,
ones.
Yes, I'm thinking.
if you think of power management and your PC goes off and they were using a VPN connection,
Yeah.
they wouldn't get to their PC.
Mm.
But if they use a remote element, could the remote then fire their PC out?
If the remote
Over the
element,
internet, yeah?
if the remote element has a piece of software that will
Yeah.
talk to AMT, providing we're talking about a wired machine, it will wake up and main board as long as it literally is plugged into a network and a power switch. That's all it requires for AMT. But somebody would have to develop a remote desktop to fire a command from one of our servers. Which is not
You need a
difficult to do, is it?
workflow built in this which fires off various things, which
Yeah.
to keep that power on and another
So,
says do this, that.
I mean, from the Matrix 42 management console, you know, you right-click, remote control, AMT, and then you've got the functions there.
You've got it built in. Brilliant.
So from that console, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
If you don't have access to this console, there's a web version of this which can be cut down based on your AD credentials or LDAP credentials. So you might only be able to see your 6 PCs in your department or whatever. And then
Presumably you can do it through service request and service catalog.
that would be the other way. So that can be a SOAP command that effectively, you know, we know the ID of the PC based on the MAC address, which is the important bit. And so we can then issue the command from there.
Can you do that on a collection of computers?
I don't think so. I think the remote control is one-to-one. Certainly in this console it is. Let's.
Turn them on.
Yeah, so they're in groups.
So that a group of PCs you want it to all turn on all at once. You could do it.
Yeah, it's ringing a bell that we only do one at a time, but let me just... I mean, if I shift select 3 PCs, then... No. So close. Again, let me check that question. If you can write that down, Stuart. I'll check the question.
It's logical it should be able to do that.
Well, but it's I don't know. I can ask. I can ask how we do it, why we do it the way we do. I seem to remember that you're getting into generating lots of the same command many times if you shift select like that. Let me find out. I mean, there'll be a reason. We put this into the product probably 4 years ago, something like that. So it's been around a while.
It certainly is possible to write a batch file that communicates with the AMT chip on the main board and turns them all on at a particular time of day in a standard Windows Task Manager.
Yeah.
So theoretically, you could do that with multiple devices.
Yeah.
We did have that running a while ago.
Okay. But yeah, so the power management in particular it's an extra agent, if you like, that you drop onto the PC. So it measures the state that it's in, and then it's using the back-end database to use that raw information and turn it into costings. And we always recommend before and after, because once you've done it and you measure how good things are afterwards, everybody goes, well, that's great, but how much have we actually saved? And the before bit allows you to argue the case quite nicely. Okay, so I think I've sort of run out of steam here. What have I missed? What do I need to also talk about?
Can you clarify something for me, just because I think I've misunderstood you? When you said the desired state, you're suggesting that can follow an end user rather than a physical PC?
It can do both. So
it's an option, one or t'other?
Yes.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so we support user-specific deployments as opposed to device deployments. You always got to be careful with the licensing on that. Because obviously if I log on to 6 machines, and I've got Visio on 6 machines now, Microsoft don't care that it's me. They want 6 lots of Visio paid for. But
yes, that's down to our licensing server working
exactly.
with concurrent licensing, concurrent
Yeah,
authorization.
there'll be some bits of software that you might want to follow the user around.
But it's very common in an educational environment.
Yeah.
Here or anywhere you go in the schools, it's the same. You will have typically 24 licenses for a piece of software, but you actually install it on 154.
Yeah.
And when the 25th person tries to use it, it says no, get away. I presume your licensing management is compatible with that licensing.
So our license management can take care of user-specific licenses, yes, providing you have obviously that software is capable of being user-specifically licensed. I mean, we've got some of our other customers, people like the University Clinic of Göttingen, which is a teaching hospital. So they've got, I don't know, 8,000 nodes or 10,000, something like that. And that's very much, it's a hospital, but it's a teaching hospital. So I think it's similar to the way you would do things rather than a typical corporate environment where it's nearly always just device. Good. So what else do I need to answer?
Just got a question about inventories and asset management. You mentioned last time that when you do asset discovery, it also nominate a person who mostly uses that machine.
Yeah. That's right, I remember the conversation now. And it was a case of take this set of devices and make sure that they're shared devices and therefore no primary user. And then other devices you can have the algorithm just assign the user to it based on the number of logons. So we read the logon table in effect and then work out from that.
And then is it using WMI to discover information about the machines?
Combination of WMI, file scan, the agent does some stuff. WMI is quite a common one. So if we go into here and pick a machine, let's pick our friend 1030. So I don't know if that's too small to see, but computer, DMI, WMI, and then if I expand those out, there's a whole ton of stuff in there. So DMI is looking at the BIOS level stuff. WMI's various WMI piece of information, battery, drives, all the rest of it. Peripherals, monitors come straight out, that's quite a good one. And then you can add further ones, so you can put extra inventory items that you want to scan really easily. There's a little GUI for doing that. So other products that I've worked in the past, you're hacking around in XML and adding WMI scripts. But with us, we've basically developed a simple GUI where you can add a reg key that you want to pick up or something like that. as an extra piece. And the examples of that are, where are we? User-defined values. So, for example, what version of DirectX happens to be on the machine, which you might use later on as a prerequisite for a piece of software. You know, if it doesn't have this version of DirectX, go and install it first. And there's masses of functionality that's based in here.
If you had a printer attached?
Yeah. If the printer was on and attached, otherwise it just picks up the print drivers. But if the machine is on and attached, then it will use the LPT or the USB connectivity, which I think is just out of WMI.
So that's local printers rather than network.
Well,
queues, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I have another database which has got this laptop in it with kind of my monitor and my printer, and that definitely picks up the print queues. But I think we use the USB. We can detect what's connected to USB. That sometimes gives you code, sometimes it doesn't. Depends on the device. But I know the monitors are picked up. The printers I'll check on. We pick up. Somebody asked me this before. It's ringing a bell that we pick up printers, but let me check. Can you just take a quick note? And obviously there's software, and I mean in this particular case there's various other things. Do you ever do the thing where you pop a screen up in front of a user and ask them who they are, where they are? We call it sort of like a manual audit, you know? So there's a capability for that in here, which can be quite amusing. If people aren't expecting it, Mickey Mouse Disney World is quite a common answer. But if you want to just do a physical audit of a load of machines that have shown up on the network, you've no idea, then providing you can effectively connect to the machine, you can push out this pop-up screen that they get, that they just fill in some details and it pulls it back for you. So that's the data collector stuff here. And I mean, without going into too much detail, what we're doing with our packaging service is we can assign variables to groups or to individual machines. And if I just right click on here, this will go slightly technical. If we look at the variables, in fact, so we can use these variables to then drive the installation routines to do different things. So a common one is Adobe Creative Suite has individual license keys. So you have a variable for my machine with that individual license key in it, and then the installer runs on any machine, but it'll only obviously install if it finds the license key. So that was one that I got out of. And then certainly one of the advantages Matrix 42 has over SCCM, and this is a good one, we call it the admin airbag. So it's quite a cute feature where if a software product registers an error when it installs, that's okay, we'll retry. If it registers 3 errors, we'll back off. If you get, let's say, 25 errors across the estate, then we'll push the admin airbag option, which will stop the deployment dead on all machines. Because if you're getting that many errors coming back, you don't want to find out tomorrow morning, or well, you don't mind finding out tomorrow morning, but wouldn't it be nice if it just stopped the installation before it broke a whole load more people's machines? So that's one of the standard features that we built in on customer request, actually. Somebody asked us for that.
So you've got 3,000 PCs on the network.
Yep.
How do you get the agent on them in the first place?
A variety of ways. So you can either use, you've got SMS, haven't you? So you could use SMS to push the agent out. It's just an exe at the end of the day. You can use an AD logon script. You can remotely connect. So if you do discovery, then that gets you the kind of the list, and then you can push an agent from there. And again, you can select multiple machines and push the agent. It does kind of require them having the same logon credentials to do that. So there's 3 or 4 ways to achieve it. It can just be something you double click on. The logon script's the most popular, but obviously the user has to log on. So if you've these laptops, I think I worked with a customer once where some of their laptops had never been logged on for 5 months because they would just standby up like that. So we recommend a variety of ways. So logon scripts are kind of your starter for 10. If you've got agents already on those devices, that's by far the easiest. And we've worked with many customers to develop basically a little script that says, push this one on, rip that one off, and send a big OK when it's done. So it's usually fairly straightforward, and we find with fixed assets like these, you know, you can achieve 80% in a week is the typical metric. It's just the ones that aren't on the network that become the problems, and I think it's something like 99% within 3 months is the typical average. But 80% in a week is quite common.
But you can, if you want to, use a standalone installer for the
Yeah.
agent.
Yeah. It's up to you. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, the agent is just an XE. It's about 8 mega RAM it uses once it's on there. The remote control one uses a different piece of RAM to do its stuff, but you know, we can either do that real time or you have it on there. So our agent does the patching, software delivery, inventory, controls the parts of the OS deployment. So it's all pretty straightforward and fairly lightweight.
Just clarify what you mean when you say it does the patching. Do you mean it takes over from WSUS, or do you mean it patches the environment stuff?
So what we do today in the product is we take a feed from WSUS into the Matrix 42 server, and then the agents all run in effect a scan, and then based on the patches you've enabled from the WSUS server on Matrix 42, it'll say, is this one here? Yes, no, install. So that's quite slick and quick, particularly the first time when you might have 60 patches to install. And then it's just that regular feed from WSUS. You enable the ones you want. You can auto-enable if you want, or you can auto-enable critical. There's all that sort of functionality in there. And then the agent just runs on a regular schedule and checks both if anything changed in terms of new patches, superseded patches, and it looks for the DLLs and the files that mean a patch is there. So if you install something over the top and you've deleted a DLL, then it does that as well. What we're adding in the April release is third-party patch management. And so that will allow us to take a feed from a product called Shavlik, if you've ever heard of it. So I've got a list here. There's 25 separate vendors' patches that we are then able to download the intelligence to find out if they're on there or not, and the patches themselves. And again, same agent. So our agent just takes the XML, is it there or not, and then fires it up.
Given that that's a relationship with Shavlik, is that a separate license agreement?
No. So it is, in effect it is for us, but we OEM the feed. So from a customer's perspective, it's transparent. But it gives us quite a good capability for things like Adobe. I was in Frankfurt on Friday to do some training on this, and they showed us the Adobe list, and it was like this. There are so many versions of Adobe products. Microsoft and Adobe are probably, there's thousands of patches between them at any particular time. And then it sort of went down the list into things like 7-Zip, I think, and Wireshark and a few other bits that I didn't know. But it was pretty comprehensive. And the question on Apple patches was not yet, in case you were going to ask. But it's planned for.